Congressman Garcia, welcome to Pod Save America.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
So you're now the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee. Congrats on winning that big election.
Thank you. Obviously, just very grateful to the caucus. And look, I think obviously the oversight, as you know, is like the heart of what Congress does, which is transparency, investigations, holding the powerful accountable. Obviously, we're going to hold Donald Trump accountable in new ways, and I'm looking forward to that. And I think it was good for the party and the caucus to expand the tent and bring in some new folks. And I think that's also a good sign for where the party is going. And I certainly hope so.
What power do you have, for people who don't know, on that committee as the ranking member, the minority party? Obviously, Republicans, control Congress and control that committee. And so what powers do you have, and what do you plan to do with them?
I mean, a couple of things. I think one is, look, as ranking member and certainly in the minority, we still have investigative powers. So we can still launch investigations. We can still work and try to get legislation done. We can still push back in committees and outside to talk to the American people directly. And I think it's really important that when we have these hearings, that we're bringing the fire, that we're being honest and direct with the American public, that we're pushing back on every lie that is told by the far MAGA right. I mean, look, you've got Nancy Mace, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Jim Comer. I mean, this is kind of the worst of the liars and the extreme right in Congress. And so we're going to have to push back and communicate the message, a winning message, a message that's kind of forward-looking for the country. And then I think also at the same time, I want to build the best and the brightest, not just on the committee and invite new folks to join, but we're going to build a team of oversight staffers. There's already some incredible team members, but we want to bring in even more folks that are committed to this work. And they're also going to look at our committee structure that we can communicate more effectively to the American public. We need to be in every single digital space, communicating in a way that the American public can understand these investigations, that they're relatable to the American public, and that they can see through the lies and deception of James Comer and Donald Trump.
So on that note, as you pointed out, you got some of the biggest clowns in the Republican Party on that committee, like just attention-starved clowns. How do you think about balancing the need to push back, as you say, and call out the lies without helping them turn these hearings into a circus, right? Which is what they want, and also turns off some people who are watching.
Yeah, I think there's two pieces of it. I mean, look, they're bringing the clown show. We've got Maxwell Frost and Greg Casar and Jasmine Crockett, Summer Lee, and so many others that are going to, I think, deliver and communicate broadly to the American public. At the same time, I've told them and I've told the committee team that we're going to build a forward-looking agenda. Not only are we going to focus on investigations, and we're going to investigate not just Donald Trump, but corporate power that wants to abuse the American public. We're going to take on some of the big issues that are happening right now, whether it's ICE or whether it's big corporations trying to rip off middle-class families. We're also going to have a forward-looking agenda of government reform. The committee is oversight and government reform. And we don't do enough of that. People want to see the federal government be more efficient, be more effective, ensure that we're providing services quicker and faster to constituents. These are all things that are highly popular across the country. And so, yes, we need to be the opposition party and have investigations and bring that fire. But we are going to lay out a vision for how we actually make government work better for people. I think it's going to be highly popular, and I'm really excited in putting together that plan.
And it sounds like that's something that Democrats could run on in the midterms.
100%. And I think it's also something, I mean, I kind of pitch myself to the caucus as someone that's done a lot of government reform. I was a big city mayor before I got to Congress just a couple of years ago, and we made government faster. We used technology. We brought in innovation. We weren't afraid of efficiency. Efficiency can't be a word that Republicans co-opt to mean the destruction of government or DOGE or eliminating workers. Efficiency can mean actually making government faster, making employees and the workforce be more attentive and work closer with the public and constituents, and using technology to actually make our services work better. So I think all of that is under our jurisdiction. And I think it's also could be a forward-looking agenda that could absolutely help with the midterms.
So there's a story today about a Los Angeles family suing the Trump administration because armed federal agents wearing no uniform arrested their 9-year-old and 6-year-old who has leukemia as they walked out of their asylum hearing with their mother. This is from the story. They were crying in fear. One of the agents lifted up his shirt to display the gun he was carrying, and the 6-year-old was so terrified he urinated on himself. No one offered him a change of clothing. They were shipped to Texas, and the 6-year-old missed a medical appointment even though his cancer symptoms got worse. These kids were enrolled in LA public schools. I have run out of ways to express how outraged and disgusted I am by Stephen Miller terrorizing communities. And the question I get asked all the time from people is, what more can we be doing about this? It feels like we hear these horrible stories and everyone speaks about them, but what more can we be doing? What do you think?
First, what's happening right now is just, it is so inhumane and gross. And as an immigrant myself who came here as a young kid, it's not the America that so many immigrants come to actually be a part of, to fight for citizenship. The American dream that immigrants are actually drawn to is being ripped away from people. And the inhumanity, essentially dehumanizing immigrants so that they're less than human, is Stephen Miller doing what he loves to do, which is be essentially the biggest piece of shit in this country. Stephen Miller should be ashamed for the way he is acting. I can't even believe he's from our state, which actually makes me more sick.
Me too.
And I'll say that like what's happening right now is it's not just that story, which is horrific. I mean, it's the dad of those Marines that got essentially beat on a street. It's children that are U.S. citizens being deported, as we know, to other countries without consent. Due process in our Constitution is given to citizens and non-citizens. It's all persons. And I don't know what part of all persons that Kristi Noem, Donald Trump, and Stephen Miller don't understand. And so what has to happen now, I think you're seeing some of that. One is we are winning some of these cases in the courts. And I think that's been a really important vehicle for Democrats. We've got to continue winning in the courts, and that's going to continue. And the other piece of it, people's reaction, the protesting, the anger, the rising up against these actions also is having an effect. And you're seeing that. I mean, what's happening in LA, which was widely, as you know, mostly peaceful. Mm-hmm. And yes, there were some incidents of violence. We denounce those. We get that. But widely peaceful, the protests are energizing the population and the public to stand up against this. And we are seeing the impact it's having on the Republicans electorally. I mean, Trump's immigration numbers have never been as low as they are right now because they're seeing what he wants to do implemented across the country. And so that's going to be really important. And then finally, Democrats in Congress and across the country, we got to fight. We got to continue to fight really hard. It does feel in these last few weeks, last month or so, that there is a shift happening. I really do sense that Democrats people have found their footing. They're being more aggressive. They're getting out in the street more. And so I hope that wave kind of continues. And hopefully we can stop the worst from happening and encourage some actually good legislation moving forward.
Do you plan to conduct investigations from your perch on the Oversight Committee of ICE and DHS? And do you think that any of these officials would actually show up at the hearings?
One is absolutely, you can take it to the bank. I mean, going after the corruption of what's happening right now at ICE and Homeland Security is going to be a critical piece of our oversight agenda. And even in the minority, we actually have some oversight investigative work coming up here in the next few weeks specific to ICE.
Great.
But certainly that is going to be a big focus of what we do. Broadly speaking, of course, when we're able to have subpoena power and actually take over the investigations, one thing I've told people is you can rest assured that if you are right now causing the level of harm that the Stephen Millers of the world are, that these ICE agents are, that the corruption that's happening to destroy our institutions, you are going to be held accountable. We're not going to forget the harm that you're causing to people and our government. We're going to use the power of subpoena investigations. We're going to ensure transparency, and these folks are going to be held accountable.
I know you've been working really hard to get answers from the administration on Andre Romero Hernandez, the Venezuelan asylum seeker who they've disappeared to CCOT. And I know you were talking about this with Lovett and Tim Miller at the Pride event a couple of weeks ago. Any other updates you've gotten on Andre?
No. I'm hopeful that we'll get an update soon. There is a lot happening right now with the case. We're in very close contact with the lawyers and the family. And I will tell you that some of the most compassionate, smart people are working on this case right now. And I remind everyone that Andre came to our country seeking asylum with an appointment that we gave him. We said, come to this appointment on this day and this time. And then we detain him and then send him to a country he's never been to a notorious prison. And as you know, this is someone that's described as very sweet by his family. And so just horrific, the cruelty level. We are, of course, in the courts right now on this case. There is some movement, and I'm really hoping that the proof of life piece, which is so critical, we're hoping to get that some proof of life here soon, and I'm hoping there'll be some positive developments, which I'm hoping that will be announced.
That would be wonderful. Republicans in Congress right now are still trying to get the votes for their bill to cut taxes for the rich and health care for the rest. Do you think any of your Republican colleagues in the House will actually defy Donald Trump and vote against this bill? And what do Democrats have planned to make noise about this as we get closer to a final vote?
I mean, first, I can't believe that they're doing it. This is like literally insane. The amount of people that are going to lose healthcare. I mean, 16 million people could lose healthcare and food assistance. I mean, it's just, it has nothing to do with anything that Donald Trump or Republicans actually campaigned on. Like what happened to lowering the costs of groceries and the cost of goods? And if you think about our state alone, right, in California, the Republican Californians could actually stop this bill, but they are just complete cowards and just bend the knee to whatever Donald Trump wants. These, supposedly moderate members, which are not moderate, they're extremists, are not standing up to Speaker Johnson and the president. Take David Valadao.
Yeah.
David Valadao has more people on Medicaid, or we call it Medi-Cal here in California, more people on Medicaid than any other member of Congress in the state of California. His population of constituents depend on Medicare for their health care, for their livelihood, to live. And yet he is going to vote to cut that care. Young Kim here in Southern California likes to talk a good game. She's all in the tank for cutting health care from workers and teachers in her district. And so we're starting by holding these California Republicans accountable. And there are other Republicans across the country who are now very nervous about the progress of this bill in the Senate. I hope that there's some senators that will do the right thing. But we can stop this if we just had a handful of Republicans who didn't believe in cutting health care for our grandparents.
Yeah. I want to read you some reactions to Zoran Mandani's winning the Democratic primary for mayor of New York. Quote, absolute wrong choice for New York. Quote, serious concerns, profoundly alarmed, deeply disturbing pattern of unacceptable anti-Semitic comments. Those are all from Democrats, many of them your House colleagues. I know you've praised Mamdani's win and said Democrats need to get on board. What would you say in response to your colleagues' concerns?
I mean, I don't know. Anyone that has followed this campaign or that has seen the way he's connected with voters and New Yorkers can see that this is someone that we should be taking lessons from. Let's be first clear. He is the Democratic nominee for mayor in New York. And so if you are a Democrat and you believe in building our party, he is our nominee. And I expect that we are going to be on board, not just at the national level, but across the country and certainly in New York. The second thing is there's a lot of, I think, rhetoric about folks, why he won, and people want to attribute foreign policy issues or what's happening in the Middle East or other things, or he's from the DSA, or he's a socialist. I think that is actually not the centerpiece of why he won. He won because he actually had a forward-looking agenda. He had an agenda that was positive, that people felt. He's talking about lowering the cost of living, buses and transit that's free, rent stabilization for New Yorkers across all the boroughs. These are widely popular issues with people, and the people are saying, yes, we think those should be Democratic priorities. So we should be listening to the people on the ground that powered this election. And then he took those ideas, a forward-looking agenda, and matched it with some of the best political retail skills and communication skills that we've seen in modern campaigning. I mean, his digital program, what he was communicating online was insane. I mean, every time I saw something different and the way he communicated with people, I told folks here in DC, I said, are you guys seeing this? This is we're going around, spending $10-20 million for spending on consultants to figure out how we reach voters. I'm like, can we just listen and watch what this guy is doing?
Yeah.
Look, you don't have to agree with all of his positions. And many folks are going to have different positions than Zoran has, whether it's on foreign policy issues or on economic issues. But he is our nominee. He speaks to New Yorkers. We should get behind him, and we should learn from what he's doing in this campaign.
So he, last question on this, and then I'll let you go. He, certainly expanded the coalition. He brought in new voters. I think he did better with some working and middle class voters than people expected. He still, he lost to Cuomo by 20 points among people making under $50,000. He lost black voters by 20 points. And this is obviously not a Mandani thing. This has been a pattern for Democrats stretching back to the 2024 election and even earlier than that. But my thought is, okay, here's someone who has populist, progressive economic policies that were the focus of his campaign. He's a fantastic communicator. He's a really skilled politician. He got to go meet tons and tons of voters. If that can't win over working class voters, where are your thoughts on what Democrats should do in both, the midterms and beyond to win over some of these working class voters who, either used to vote Democrat or would certainly benefit from Democratic policies?
I mean, I have this conversation all the time with my colleagues here in Congress and friends. I think there's two pieces. I think one is, look, he did overperform in some of those margins. I mean, you look at some of the black and brown voters in New York. He actually, look at the Latino vote. He did better than expected. Right?
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
Grateful to that, and he made the effort, right, which is really important. The thing about the left, and I think something we've all got to grapple with, is yes, class issues and working class issues are key and central and are so important should be driving policy, but also black and brown voters, especially within the black community, that are the bedrock of our party and our voter. Issues of racial justice, of racial injustice, and of race are central and are important. And to leave some of that conversation off the table, I think is a huge mistake for progressives and folks on the left. And so I think that we have to have an honest conversation, kind of both sides of the family, about both are important. And a lot of the folks that I talk to, Latinos, working class Latinos, they feel the system is broken, but they also want the racial injustice to be recognized as part of that broader conversation. So there's a lot of work to do there. We've got some talented people talking about this. I think whether it's Zoran or others across this country, we got to bring all of us together and talk about this divide, because it is real and it's going to be a challenge for us moving forward to win elections.
Congressman Garcia, great talking to you. Thanks for joining, and come back again soon.
Anytime, man. Thanks.
Take care.